Welcome back to the Lanterne Rouge Cycling Podcast presented by Zwift. Thursday, 7th of April. We've got Basque Country Stage 4 on today, as well as Circuit Sarthe cyclist thingy in France, which is the same parkour every day from what it seems to me. But Basque Country was the big ticket item with Shell the Press yesterday. The parkour the last 3 days has been very, very similar. There has been a climb of various steep proportions, cresting about 20 Ks to 30 Ks from the finish, with the finish being flat for quite a while and maybe a little uphill kicker, but not a proper hill finish either. That's what we had today from Vitoria-Gasteiz to Ingeteam Park Zamudio. Good conditions, sunny, 20 degrees, and we had longer climbs today. They had the Viveiro climb, which Benji astutely said, I don't know how he remembered this, it's in the Tour next year, right? Which stage?
Yeah.
It's not like a final climb though, right?
Stage 1 is the second last climb before they go to the Bike Bidea or something is that other climb that's just after it. So it should be quite... I'm not necessarily saying it's going to be the one where attacks are going to follow, but something might happen on it during the Tour de France Stage 1 next year. So looking forward to that. But today was certainly in the parkour for something to happen, right?
Yeah, well... Maybe. It's so far from the finish, 20 Ks, and that's what really has coloured these stages. Stage 1, TT Roglic won. Stage 2, Alaphilippe won from a group sprint after the Pro Conti teams self-destructed. Stage 3, Bilbao nailed Alaphilippe in the sprint yesterday. So we've got, will Remco try for GC? He's not looked good on the climbs. What will Ineos do? Ineos yesterday paced all day with Thomas. Today, they got him in the break, and it was a completely different... It's what I thought would happen yesterday happened today, because Ineos didn't decide to repeat yesterday's strategy. The strong teams got riders in the break. Van Sevenot in there, Thomas in there. When I saw that, I went out and took went for a hike, because I thought the break was going to take 5-6 minutes. Were you... Did you think the break had a chance? I really did, with Armour Rail. Who else was in there? Some strong guys.
Quite a lot of strong riders. We had Victor Lafay for Cofidis, won a Giro stage last year, Oscar Rodriguez and Christian Rodriguez, so potentially a third Rodriguez is standing up in the ranks right now, but nah. Oscar Rodriguez was not going to be the strongest rider. Yeah, the Holy Trinity, you're right. Cepeda for Caja Rural, Donovan for DSM, some random riders, Guerrero for EF, Armirai for Groupama. We also had... I think we've said the most important names, I guess, from that list. So I'll go with that for now. And that breakaway indeed didn't get too much time because Jumbo was keeping the tempo relatively okay to not make sure that Cristiano Rodriguez had 3 minutes in GC after today's stage, because he's still not 10 minutes behind. He's, I think, 2 minutes behind from my memory. So he was somewhat dangerous, I guess. And then eventually, Kern Pharma started pacing in the peloton, because they missed the breakaway as a Spanish Pro Conti team. And this is a conspiracy theory that's boiling up, because Caja's in the breakaway and they are not happy about stage 1.
They shouldn't be. They shouldn't be happy about stage 1. But anyway, Armorel's been very, very strong. We've been mentioning his name a few times this year. On Montagne de Lure, he was a strong climber, more of an engine. And on Viveiro, it's 6K, 6%, but the first 2Ks are 10.5%. So that really fits a punchy guy like Lafay. Good at Arctic Race of Norway against a really solid Hermans. He's a good, solid, punchy guy. That break's actually a good... he deserved to win that Giro stage. Anyway, the gap to the peloton was ebbing and flowing depending on the run into climbs. Before that Viveiro climb, there was the Urustimendi climb. 2Ks, 10.5%. This climb was no wider than 4 riders. It's, again, one of these roads, beautiful Basque roads, green hedges either side. I don't know if it's two-way. I hope to God it's one way. It's so narrow. And there's a big rush into the base because Jumbo and Quickstep wanted to block, even though they had Mauri ahead. Jumbo were riding passive, and they blocked it up. So Pierre de Latour couldn't really do anything. But before we get to the Viveiro climb, where it all really kicked off, mention our show partner Zwift, the online cycling platform that makes training fun. If you're trying to get into summer shape, or maybe if you are preparing for a gravel event in particular, Zwift is the official training community and training app for Unbound Gravel. To celebrate, they've built the Unbound training experience featuring 8 weeks of workouts and recovery rides. Whether you're part of the Zwift community or training for the Unbound Gravel event this June, you don't want to miss this series. There's also accompanying podcast. For more information, we have a link down below at Zwift.com. And yeah, I realized at the start of April, summer is quickly approaching. So I had to get my act into gear, training to be ready for some long rides in June and July. But Viveiro, Benji, Yamo
Yeah.
again, not really, didn't really want to do anything. Is that not their fault? That's just the parkour with such a long false flat descent finish.
I don't necessarily think that they need to do something spectacular on this stage. They are the ones in the lead on paper, so I'd expect the others to attack them. And to be honest, after that Urstimendi climb and so forth, they did not have like 5 riders left either, so they got to keep in mind they can't just send a train up and try and attack left and right. And perhaps they wanted to wait until some other people tried something to be able to respond to that and then do something. But the weirdest part about this Viveiro climb is that, well, in the breakaway, Lafay was riding away from everybody. One attack, snap, a gone. I think there was Armirai following for a bit.
Yeah.
And then also after that, we had Geraint Thomas and another companion in a third group behind Armirai for a bit. And then in the peloton, it was interesting because, first of all, Brambilla just started riding 5 meters ahead of the group. I don't know why. It just was funny to see that every single time the tempo dropped, he was like to the front and started riding a bit ahead. And next to that, we also had attacks by, I think Latour was doing stuff, and it was a response by Roglic, which I was on one end surprised by, on the other end not, because Latour's been relatively strong in these 1 week races this year. And do you consider him someone that Roglic should respond to, or should that have been the role for Jonas, for example?
I thought it was odd he responded to it. Jonas, to me, seemed a bit asleep, actually, on this climb. And in the latter sections, he seemed to have good legs closing later moves, but he seemed to be taken aback by some of the attacks. Now, maybe if you're caught out of position, it's so narrow, it's hard to move up. But yeah, Latour I would have been too bothered about. It's so far to the finish. And unless you want to work with him, unless you actually intend to go with him and then work, I don't really see it, which Roglic didn't seem to be intending to do. But then they kind of stopped. Brambilla went again. The gap was 130, goes to 140. I think Lafay might have done the climb quicker than them. They get to this, they turn left off the 2K 10% section onto a better actual two-way road, and it's now 3-4%, perfect for Evenepoel. And we actually see Van Sevenot's been dropped out of the break. Remco then, I think, was going to attack, stopped attacking, realized Mauri was done, and then he ended up attacking anyway. And so Quickstep decided to roll 1-2 with Alaphilippe and Remco, Benji, including Alaphilippe doing some like parkour into the gutter. I feel like they're struggling with the multi-leader strategy, Benji. I worry that they're going to burn Alaphilippe and Remco is going to hard drop on Arate.
I think when it comes to these stages, I agree with you that the 2-leader strategy should have been done differently, where when I see their squad, I've said it at Tirreno as well, the riders are very clear what their characteristics are. Yes, I did that in one go. Congratulations. But Remco Evenepoel is the type that can attack away, has the watts to keep going if he's solo and with other people and so forth, is good on those 3-4% climbs like you mentioned. And then we look at Alaphilippe, and he's the rider that is the finisher of the team. If they go to a sprint, Evenepoel is not going to do it. We've seen it in the last 2 stages that Alaphilippe is their sprinting choice. And I found it weird that they used Alaphilippe to attack today. But on the other hand, is it because they perhaps don't have the necessary confidence in the Remco's GC that they want to gain time with Alaphilippe perhaps, because otherwise they won't get ahead of Roglic in any way?
I mean, Alaphilippe, it's hard to know whether he actually wants to take GC seriously because there's I think a French rider has never won a World Tour stage race, and since the World Tour classification was introduced in over a decade. But Alaphilippe can clearly win a World Tour stage race, or at least could have in the last 5 years. I think he just attacked just to see what would happen. He got marked. It was a very strong attack. He got marked by Danny Felipe Martinez and Jonas, I think.
Yeah, you're right. And the thing is, like, they kept going. First of all, were you surprised that Jonas was responding that late again? Because you mentioned, like, he was looking like he was sleeping quite a bit.
Yeah, I was surprised that he wasn't. He should have been glued to Martinez and Roglic on Yates. That's what I thought. Or I switch it around.
Okay. And then next to that, I want to ask, when they go, eventually that group gets taken back. But Alaphilippe just kept pacing for a bit. And that's the confusing part. Alaphilippe just kept pacing at the front of the group until they got to the proper top. And that's the part that I don't get about this at all. Like, what is the point to have Alaphilippe pace knowing that the finish fits him?
I don't really know. Maybe to prevent Vlasov countering. He'd been sort of there. I think he just wanted to stay at the front. He did the same thing before the really steep climb before Viveiro as well. He wanted to just do his own pace at the front. But yeah, I don't. At the end of the day, I think it's all moot because taking a huge gap on this climb is difficult. There was Movistar
No.
there. Mas got distanced, and even though Jonas wasn't helping, he got his domestique to bring that back. Bahrain were there with numbers. I thought Jonas, he's only 1 second ahead of Martinez, so he didn't work with them, so that didn't work. Anyway, descent, Remco attacks Roglic, goes really fast. Roglic is on his wheel. They had a gap, gets to a shallow section, stops. And we have Victor Lafay up the road. He's taken a 40-second lead on Thomas, Armirel, Guerrero, and Formolo, who we haven't mentioned for a while. Guerrero, he is a saboteur of chasers from way back. He maybe he wasn't today, but he has in the past, and they had no chance of catching Lafay. So he had a decent lead, 50 seconds, 10Ks to go. Suddenly, UAE go to the front, and everyone switches into sprint mode. Caja, or I think, they have Allah there. Roglic just has Jonas. UAE have 5 or 4 riders, one of which is Ulisi. We have a little uphill kicker. Remco and Alaphilippe are the only quick-step riders, apart from Van Sevenot, who'd been in the break for a long time. They pull. Suddenly, Lafay's cracking, and I thought this was going to be a nailed-on break win for Lafay. Unfortunately for him, it got brought back very, very quickly with finally, after UA were done, they spent everyone. Soler did a good job. Remco put the death knell, I think, just under the Flamme Rouge for Lafay. And Benji, we've credited him, Remco, for his lead-outs at, I think I said it was Algarve, but it might have been Valenciana for Jakobsen the other day. Some weren't good either. To me, he starts his lead-outs like an attack. He gapped, maybe it was Polance or a UAE guy off his wheel, and then looks around and stops and waits. And I think he's a great last K reverse lead-out option, maybe the best in the world. But then if he actually wants to do a steady lead-out, why is he getting in super aero position and surging? And I even think Alaphilippe doesn't want to be on his wheel in the lead-outs anymore because he eats so much wind behind him.
Ooh, spicy take. I think when it comes to his leadouts, I agree that this one today certainly was a very accelerative one when it comes to the start of it, and it definitely caught UAE somewhat by surprise, as they probably thought it was an attack by Remco. So it indeed looked somewhat like an attack. And then the curious aspect is okay, he kind of goes slower and he looks behind. What is the situation? Alaphilippe is not on my wheel. I've got 2 UAE riders in my wheel. I could keep going because Alaphilippe's on the wheel of another sprinter in a relatively strong position to do something here and keeps that going. But what intrigues me the most is the last part of his lead out is always what's intriguing. And we go into these final 500 meters and it starts to get a bit cornery. And we've seen lead outs like on stage 1 where he did wonderful corners and it brought Alaphilippe to victory. But when it comes to these corners, the people started swarming them on the left side. And that's where the danger lies. Because Remco's lead out starts getting slower towards the end?
Yeah, I think he ran out of steam a little bit. It was kicking uphill, so it wasn't like you can't drop your guy off at 250. That was too early. And I think the chicane also caught them by surprise. It really was this open left side was the spot to move up. Roglic was shading Alaphilippe's wheel and Ulisi's wheel to that side. Ulisi had the open lane there, but it was Martinez jumping ahead into the quickest line through this left-hand bend. And they'd had Thomas in the break. Martinez had attacked before. He's in magnificent form, and he got the jump on Ulisi. Ulisi, I'll be frank, looked a bit slow, and I'm not mad. I don't think UAE did anything wrong. If you don't try, you don't get anything. And they had him in the group. So fine them pacing, they had the riders, but he looked slow. Alaphilippe had to go the long way around Remco, who was blocking him through the corner, and can only catch up to Martinez in the last 25 meters side by side. And despite Martinez thinking he'd won easily, he didn't do a bike throw. He already started celebrating. He nearly Alaphilippe himself, giving it to Alaphilippe, but the karma gods still gave it to him by literally the width of a tire. And he beats Alaphilippe coming quick behind him, who misses out a second day in a row for stages that really suited him. Ulissi third, Roglic not even bike throwing for fourth for the 4 bonus seconds.
Yeah.
He also got closed in the sprint for a second day in a row. Could he have opened up earlier? Probably, but doesn't really matter.
Yeah, I agree when it comes to Roglic that he had the opportunity of perhaps opening up earlier, but it was due to the fact that Remco on the right side of the road was done with his lead out at 150 meters to go and moved to the left to let Alaphilippe go through, because Alaphilippe was kind of blocked between like 200 meters to go and 150 meters to go. So had to get a gap. So Remco moved to the left. And at that point, Aular, the Caja guy that we spoke about a few days ago, was on the left side of Remco. And because of that move of Remco, Aular had to move left. And I think that's what necessarily caused Roglic to have to brake a tiny bit, move to the left, and then try and close down Alaphilippe, who had jumped to the wheel of Ulissi, the wheel that Roglic initially wanted to have. So perhaps if Aular didn't have to move to the left because of that Remco move, which is a logical move in a lead out, so no blame to Remco there, Roglic might have had a better chance of podiuming this and even could have competed for the victory. But hey, that's timing in sprints. It's all very tricky, and sometimes you've got the right one, sometimes you have the wrong one. But honestly, I didn't know that Martinez had such a kick-ass today, to be honest. So I would not have said Martinez would win this at all with 5K to go, but I'm always happy when we see a rider that gets an extra bit of a sprint when it comes to climbing, because that gives an extra competitor when people try to attack over a climb and there's a 4-man group or someone getting away. Then there's always that option that one rider can win that sprint as well. So that's the part I like a lot. When it comes to, I don't know, what else can we say?
Well, GC-wise, he moves up 10 seconds. So is Martinez ahead of Alaphilippe, Ulissi, Roglic, Bilbao, Guerrero 7th after being the break, then Milan, Vlasov, Brambilla. Martinez started the day on 21 seconds to Roglic. He's moved up from 8th to 3rd, which is a lot. Roglic hasn't taken any bonus seconds, I don't think, yet in this race, which is quite surprising. So Martinez now 3rd on 11, and Alaphilippe is on 22 seconds. Would Alaphilippe be almost level with Roglic if he hadn't had that mechanical?
Ooh, that's an intriguing take. He lost
It'd be close.
Quite a lot of time in that time trial because of that mechanical. So let's say he at least loses like 15 seconds, I dare to say. So he'd definitely be quite close in GC. I'm not great at math, so he'd be on roughly the same
5.
as Vlasov, Yates, Thomas, and so forth, like top 5.
And then I think if he was closer, they would have ridden more for his GC perhaps, and then he would have maybe won one of these sprints, more bonus seconds. So because he was being quite aggressive. Anyway, that's sort of the consequences of that TT. Stage 5 tomorrow from Zamudio to Mayabia, 163 Ks. It is an actual uphill finish this time with a ramper. This looks more dangerous to me for GC this stage. Much, much more dangerous. It starts with a 4K, 5.7% climb, and it is uphill, 3 consecutive climbs, including a steep one for 1.5 Ks. This is where to get satellite riders in the break. There could be a shit fight at the start of this stage. It then chills out a bit, and then they have consecutive climbs, 4 of them. They're like 2.6 Ks, 6%. 3.3K, 7%, 3K, 6%, 5Ks, 4%. There's intermediate sprints on them. Some of them, I can't see any ramp-ass in there. But they get to the finish. There's then, with 17Ks to go, a 3K, 9% climb, which is a false summit, and then another kicker at the end. Descent, 5K, false flat drag, which finishes with a 600-meter, 10.5% ramp. Roglic, I think Jumbo should go for Roglic tomorrow.
I think if the elite group wins, yes, it's Roglic. The thing is that it's been closed for 3 days when it comes to the breakaway. Honestly think that it could once again be closed because of that initial pod being a rough start and therefore larger breakaways being possible on a stage like this. There's also more people on more time after 4 stages than after 1 stage. So there is that possibility that we have a relatively strong breakaway tomorrow. And what stops the riders like Lafay, Guerrero, Thomas to try again tomorrow? Like, to be honest, then the question then is Jumbo going to try and control it for Roglic this stage? And with the fact that Arate is on the final day, I always think that if there's no one dangerous in the breakaway, I don't think Jumbo will go for the stage win unless it shows up ahead of them.
True. And will Quickstep try and control it? Because this is another one perfect for Alaphilippe. Will they put Van Seven on in the break? How will they try and control it for Alaphilippe? Will they? I don't know. Lafay looks really good on this sort of finish. If he's in the break, he should be the favourite from the breakaway. Do Ineos try again? I think the big one is Ineos, Benji. Do Ineos not put Thomas in the break? Do they pace again tomorrow? And do they try and attack on the Catabieta climb with Yates or Martinez? If they do pace, then it makes it less likely that the break will win. I don't know what their plans are, but I think they should. I think they should try. You never know when Roglic has a bad day. Koos has not been there. I think they should try. But yeah, what do you think? Break or GC?
Jeez, that like in Basque Country, these stages, it's so difficult to say break or GC. I would honestly say 50-50, but I'm gonna go for GC because I want to see GC do it here. And you're right, if Ineos want to get something done before Arate, this is a stage to do it because the day after is Arate, obviously. But on this stage, the thing is like, on Arate, they have to fight on the climb that Roglic is always damn good on, or they prepare for a raid on stage 6, which is also possible.
Yeah.
And we've seen that Jumbo has not been the strongest team necessarily in doing stuff here. So they've only really got 2 riders plus half Gus who can respond to stuff here, I would dare to say, based on the last few days. So with the raid on stage 6 potentially in mind, which they've done this year already with Carapaz at that other race we just had, Catalunya, I think they might play this one more defensively and might bet on the final 2 hills, as in the Carabieta climb and the ramp at the finish to try and do something, and the big action to happen on stage 6 for Ineos. But I want to talk about a different name, unless you've got something more to say about Ineos first.
No, I got my name. I got my name ready, but you go.
Oh, I was gonna say Roglic for the stage. Like I'm gonna stick with Roglic, but I just wanted to say that Higuita was again pretty bad today, and I wanted to mention.
He looks sick.
I wanted to mention that yesterday in the Bora press release, they said he dropped because of a mechanical. I didn't see a mechanical. Like, I'm not gonna say they were lying, but he just looked like he was tired and dropping yesterday and today as well. So unless he had another mechanical, he's probably not in good form at the moment.
I don't know why teams. Just be honest. Like, it don't look good. Anyway, my name for tomorrow is Jonas Vingegaard will win the stage, I think.
Ooh, spicy. I like that.
I think
he's looking good.
And
like, I don't
he's
know.
Punchy. He's punchy. Jonas is back.
Do you see a possibility where Vingegaard wins Itzulia Basque Country?
Yep.
I think pretty cool.
I think he wins tomorrow or has a big chance of winning. Anyway,
okay.
That's hopefully I can get. We'll see the odds before the podcast goes live and he gets slammed.
Jesus.
The other race that was on today was the Circuit Cycliste Sarthe. Mads Pedersen won in a pretty dominant fashion after Kevin Vauquelin had been in the break, I think. It was like the typical Pedersen, huge 400-meter, 350-meter sprint and destroyed everyone. Vauquelin ended up being nailed close to the line second with Cav third.
1 meter.
1 meter, was it?
1 bloody meter.
Hofstede 5th, Coy 6th, Venturini 7th, Masna 8th, Vandenberg 9th, and Buda 10th. Pedersen, Benji, his stock for Roubaix keeps rising.
Yeah, certainly. But we got to keep in mind that Circuit Sarthe is not exactly the race to look at when it comes to Roubaix. Yes, we can notice that riders are in good form. We got to keep that in mind. I do still believe that Pedersen is certainly one of the top 3 favorites for Roubaix in my mind personally, especially if some rain falls, which is probably not happening based on what I've seen so far when it comes to weather reports. But he's definitely looking strong. And it's not only Pedersen in that race. Like, Kevin Vauquelin, I am going to be honest, before this year, I barely knew who this person was. I knew he won the U23 ITT in France, but outside of that, I thought he was a misc French rider on a French team. But he started the season off actually insane with Oman, where he was one of those top 3 riders, I think, on Jabal Al-Aghdar.
Yep, following Hurt.
And then throughout the rest of the season, yes, he hasn't won yet this season, but he's always so close. 4th on the first stage at Sarthe, 4th in La Route Adelier de Vitré. Yes, I'm trying French. I'm so good at it. He was, I guess, strong throughout the season so far. And
I think he's
was
in a group, Benji, in Kerner or Omloop. I think he was in like a G1. Possible. And I was like, who the fuck is that? It was Kevin Vauquelin, I swear, in one of those.
You're right.
But yeah, he's good. I still don't know what sort of rider he is because that Green Mountain performance was bizarre. Another one to watch out for is Paul Pennote. He's 20 years old on the FDJ Conti team. He's been cleaning up. He was 5th and 4th in sprints at Oman, and then good top 5 results in other sort of 1-2 races. And then at Tour de Normandy, not Tour de Normandy, he eventually won stage 5 after a couple of seconds. He's young, compact sprinter. Certainly one to watch out for. That Conti team at FDJ just
godlike.
Yeah, they just produce so many good riders.
Yeah, you can unironically build a World Tour team by just signing their last 3 years of riders, and they'd probably be able to compete for some World Tour wins.
Yep. They got a guy called Right Arm, Joey Pidcock, the GOAT. They got everyone. Anyway, that's all from us today. Right Arm, unbelievable name. Unbelievable name. Tomorrow's Basque Country. Hopefully there's GC action. Could be a rinse and repeat of today's stage, which was entertaining nonetheless. Thanks as always to Zwift for supporting the Lanterne Rouge Cycling Podcast. Amstel Gold Race this weekend. No preview because it's not a monument, but we'll be covering it. Obviously, we'll see you tomorrow. Ciao.